working remotely. So we were forced to learn to communicate all over again because we couldn't collaborate like we always did in a face-to-face environment. So I'm going to start with Bo and ask, how do you help your project team communicate and stay connected, because we don't have those informal break room communications, those hallway chats, those face-to-face interactions that happen? How do you help your team stay connected and communicate in this virtual environment?
And what we tried to do, I think overall the whole company is right from the very top, there's been a kind of commitment to constant review and change and improvement of our communication approaches. And so we just so happen to use Microsoft Teams, and there's a variety of different types of channels you can use. I mean, every platform has something similar, but like in this case, you can have project-specific channels, you can have social channels, pet lovers, and all kinds of things. So what we've tried to do is integrate a little bit of professional and social elements. At Mark Thomas, the culture is really, really important to us. We're a firm of 260 some employees, so we're not giant, but our culture is super important, very employee centric. And so that, when you're remote, is really hard. So how do you use the tools to continue to promote that? And communication in a variety of different channels is what's important. So that, again, is evolving quickly. And so, and the other thing we do is we solicit new approaches on communication from all levels of staff. So just because we might sit at the big table doesn't mean that we have all the big ideas. We specifically reach down to every staff level to make sure that, I mean, those great ideas come from everywhere. And God knows that I know nothing about social media. And so in terms of how all the different generations communicate and prefer to communicate, that's changing quickly. So that's why we like to solicit ideas from everyone within the team and see how we can improve it, because there is no one size fits all for sure in this pandemic. And then I think the last thing is a little bit more structured, but we've always kind of coached staff on, what's appropriate communication. When do you use a phone call versus email versus text, et cetera. And I think we just stepped that up a little bit in terms of professional formal communication, professional informal, social, fun, culture, culture oriented type stuff. And we just bring that more to the forefront, that there are a variety of different ways to communicate. They're not all appropriate for depending on what you're wanting to do. And so just instead of that kind of being learn on the job, we bring that up front a little bit more, so it's just people have that in the forefront of their mind when they're making decisions about how to communicate with each other and with clients, et cetera.
So thanks, Bo. That's great. There's some interesting stuff going on in the chat, and I do appreciate everyone for communicating in the chat. Jeff, I'm going to change your question just a little bit. Remy asked a question about communication, about how do you have those difficult conversations remotely? It's really easy to have the easy conversations, but how do you have that difficult conversation remotely?
Well, I guess, and it depends on the person, right? Because I can have those difficult conversations because kind of who I am. I'm always kind of open and true, and so they know that when we have that conversation, it's basically an honest conversation. But what I would say is that you need to continue to have built a relationship with the individual with trust, and they know that when they're speaking to you, or if you come from a position that you, even when you weren't in the virtual world, that you were never honest about it, and you always had to kind of not tell the truth, then I think it's much more difficult. But if you are honest all the time, all the time, if you're honest for the most part, and being true to yourself and showing respect, then I think the conversation virtually is the same thing as a conversation in in person. And so that's what I would do, is just continue to be honest and straightforward with that particular conversation. I guess that's not really a difficult question for me. So that's all that I really have. I'm just basically, it doesn't change for me virtually versus in person. So.
That's great. I love the idea of having a foundation of an honest relationship, so those conversations just happen naturally when they need to happen.
Yeah.
Lydia, do you have anything you want to build on from what Bo said or Jeff said about communication?
Yeah, we've got some great stuff in the chat box, and I just wanted to say that I agree with all the comments about it's easier to be more productive individually, but collaborating is challenging and so forth. And but with regards to those difficult conversations and having them, unfortunately for me, I have to have almost all of my difficult conversations remotely for now. But academically, that was the case as well, because our students are international. Sometimes they're in different time zones. And so we try and use the richest communication channels that we have. And I would suggest you maybe consider that as well. So if you can use a tool, whether it's WebEx, a la Jeff, or whatever the product might be, we use a lot of Adobe and Google Hangouts and WebEx Teams and Microsoft Teams and WebEx. It depends on the meeting, which is kind of cumbersome. It would be easier if we were always using the same tool. But in any event, try and use one where you can see the facial expressions and the body language and so forth in any event, so you can be more empathetic and get a better understanding of how the person is experiencing the information that you're sharing. Because for me, it's often, if I have to let a professor go, or I have to transfer part of a course to a different coach, or if a student is facing academic dismissal, those are really miserable conversations to have. And so, the richest communication channel, I find that in the remote context, I over prepare. What is this person going to ask me? Is there an appeals process for this? What's an alternative? Can I change majors? Can I go into the master? Just try and think, if just empathize and imagine if you were the other person, what would you want to know? Can I ever re-enter? That kind of stuff. And so whatever the context is, there are very context-driven questions. I would say, so over prepare and be patient, and use what people call the power of the pause. Give people a chance to digest difficult things. If it's a rough conversation, don't force them to feel that I'm getting information at the pace of drinking out of a fire hose. Give them dignity, even though you're not in the same room, to sort of think about things and absorb the information. Sometimes if it's in a legal context, it's even trickier, because I do a lot of unlawful detainers and collections and domestic violence restraining orders. And so I have to try and get it right, even though those people are no longer standing in front of me. And at the end of the day, someone might be evicted from their home, someone might lose their child. So those are really difficult conversations to have remotely. So be patient, use the power of the pause, use the richest communication channel that's available to you. Just try and feel how the person is absorbing that information.
So kind of what I'm hearing from all three of you, and from what I'm reading in the chat, is a lot of what we do for communication is the same that we've always done in many ways. It's just using different tools. So the idea that Jeff talked about building that relationship with the person up front, the idea that Lydia talked about preparing for that communication and knowing how to deliver the message and thinking through what questions the person will have. And someone commented in the chat that they loved your phrase, the power of the pause. I think that's a very powerful thing. And then Bo talked about continuous improvement. We always want to continuously improve, rather being face-to-face in the office or working remotely. So that being said, I want to go back to the work-life balance conversation and working productively. I know that Lydia had talked about it, that she thought she was more productive because she was working from home. And Jeff says he has such a high volume of work that he never sleeps. So we're going to start with Jeff to talk about work-life balance. So, Jeff, how do you keep some sort of work-life balance? And more importantly, how do you help your project team members keep a work-life balance going when they have all of these other stresses and challenges in their lives?
I have to be honest that this is a tough one, right? I mean, it's the days have actually between weekdays and weekends have blurred to me. Actually, Saturday, sometimes I didn't know if Saturday was Monday. I mean, so especially at the beginning. So I mean, that's just honest. And right now, the work-life balance isn't all the best at this point. So it was before the pandemic, but right now, I'm just being honest. It's been a lot of work, and the part about you knowing how the economy is and the challenges out there. I've actually, and part of it's probably my fault too, right? I'm just knowing that, hey, don't lose your job. Don't lose your job. So I've actually taken on extra things, right? For instance, I had my regular workload, which was already a lot. People got laid off, got their workload. Okay, thank you very much. You bring me more, that kind of thing. But I also participated in things such as initiatives to improve and improve certain part of the project management process, right? And the reason why I did that is to become more visible, right? Because when you're now in the virtual world, you're not as visible as well, right? And so the balance right now, to me, of the only balance that I have basically is that on every single morning at 6 a.m., I get up with my Yorkie and we walk and we go for 30 minutes plus every morning, regardless of what happens, 6 o'clock. And so that's a staple. And then on Friday night, when everything is done, I watch 2 movies that on Netflix and then the other one on Prime, Amazon Prime, on Friday night. Get out this room, everybody. I'm watching my movie. So other than that, then Saturday is back to work and all that. That's just the way it has been for the last 8 months. So that's my balance basically. And I wish it would change, but right now I'm just in this mode where I'm going to keep working hard until this pandemic goes back down.
So interestingly, Jeff, you made a comment that kind of resonated with someone in the chat, or maybe she put that in first. I wasn't watching the timing of it. You talked about you had a schedule, even though you were working really hard, about every morning at 6 o'clock, I'm going to walk my Yorkie, right? And then you have this is my Netflix time. And that wrote about how it was important to have a schedule and maintain that schedule. So even though you have a chaotic work schedule, you have some pieces that always are the same. So.
Yeah, and the Yorkie forces me though. She actually
well,
is the one that.
It's having an accountability partner, right? If we put it into professional speak, right? The Yorkie is your accountability partner to make
all
sure
of a sudden I feel something licking on like, okay, it's 6 o'clock. Okay.
Oh, and I'm also getting a comment here about movies are your reward for good behavior.
Absolutely.
Lydia, what about you? How do you maintain a work-life balance? And more importantly, how do you keep your project team members maintaining a work-life balance?
So one of our biggest projects has been that we're switching to a higher accreditation standard. And so we had to do a lot of curriculum updating. So updating 100 courses and processing through 42 faculty on the JD side only. There's a separate faculty for university and so forth. The collaborating and stuff is a little more challenging, but I find that my faculty have quirky schedules. And so it kind of works out. And in fact, when I became a dean last year, it actually triggered a lot of imbalance in my life because as a dean, the chairman of the board wanted a lot of face time. Our CEO, who's a physicist, more focused on the university side that came along later, is okay with working remotely. So I'm ecstatic to recapture 2 to 3 hours a day of not driving. I mean, that's almost 2 to 3 business days that I just got back. So for me, it sort of restored the balance. So I can actually do more practice items and things that I enjoy doing. And my faculty are in different time zones. So in many ways, it's kind of worked out, except for when we're having all hands meetings, because that's where being spread out can really kind of catch up with you. But a number of attorneys bonded together, and they have a step party every month where everybody has to try and get 10,000 steps a day. The October one was called Rocktober Step Party. And so we manage it on Facebook. And although I don't have a dog, but maybe, as Amanda suggested, I should get one, I have a cat. But I do try and, migrate the exercise in wherever I am. If I'm in court, I'm doing laps around the jury room, because there's nobody in it now, because we don't have live juries and they can't sit together. If we do, they are in the courtroom where the gallery would have been. It's kind of a strange phenomena. So you try to make it work. But I would say the other thing that I've noticed is there are a lot of ways that you can simulate a group meeting and acknowledging other people's work-life balance. So entities like Grubhub do offer service to meeting participants when a meeting is in progress. So if you were to do something like have, fun time to acknowledge all the birthdays on your team on a quarterly basis, you can do that. And we did that for a bar event through the Casa Italiana. You could order what you wanted from the menu, and they actually delivered it during the CLE, which was great because they need work because they can't host weddings and, memorial services and so forth. There's a lot of entities that will work with you if you put something together. So be creative as you help your team manage its work-life balance while you're still trying to get stuff done and feel like a team wherever you are disparately located.
So I heard a couple things that are good that I heard Jeff say too, the idea of physical. Don't just sit all day, get up and take a walk. You were walking around the jury room. Jeff Yorkie is forcing him to get some exercise whether he wants to or not. He's got an exercise partner. And then I like the idea of the Grubhub or other food delivery service delivering food during your meeting. That's a very creative solution to the idea of we can't go eat lunch together. How do you help maintain work-life balance for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, I think so much has already been shared that's really, strong. I think that, whatever that routine is individually is super important. Whatever gets your work done and also keeps your motivation up and your health good and all that, you just have to commit that and make it happen. So that's kind of a discipline thing, right, individually. But in terms of the work environment, I think the thing that we try to do is make sure is recognize that everybody may take breaks differently, or they're educating their kids differently, or, so there might be a point in time when, let's say during the normal work environment, 11:30 to 1:30 is kind of like a weird time because people are taking lunch and everything. But the fact is you can have whole teams where someone has a blackout period from 2 to 4 o'clock because of school or whatever. And because of that, I think the thing that we try to stress is, having odd breakout or blackout periods is perfectly fine. Just make sure everybody knows about it. And that way people aren't frustrated if they're trying to get a hold of you or what have you, that if you're keeping everybody apprised of your status. And, there's some communication platforms that allow for that, where you can say you're busy or you're away from your desk or what have you. That helps alleviate stress for the individual, for people who are trying to get in contact with you, what have you. The only other thing I might say is, and this is not just the pandemic, but prioritization of communication or assignments. So just because I send you an email on Saturday doesn't mean I need an answer Saturday or Sunday, right? So sometimes we want to over communicate what our expectations are, so that people understand that even though I'm taking advantage of things being quiet at, at 10 at night, that doesn't mean that I need an answer 6 a.m. or something like that. Just, over communicate, say, hey, when you have a chance, anytime this week, whatever, just that way, if you don't say that, it leaves them wondering, and maybe some expletives come up and like, you're invading my life. And, and so that's just a way to avoid some levels of stress, is maybe over communicate in terms of prioritization of assignments, that kind of thing.
So unfortunately, we're running out of time on this really interesting conversation. I learned a lot from each of our speakers today. A couple of the highlights that I wanted to bring up that have really stuck out in my mind was the idea that we are all our own risk managers, and that we need to embrace the awkwardness and the reality of change and difference. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are consistent from our face-to-face experience, and we need to continue to do some of the things that we've always done and build good communications and prepare for those communications and build that foundation of honesty with our people no matter what tool we are using. We have to know, I love this phrase from Jeff, I can control what I can control, and we need to know what that is and let the other go. And most importantly, we need to have a schedule and take care of ourselves both physically, mentally, and spiritually. I don't know how to use the word spiritually in this conversation, but it all goes together. We have to be a whole person. And like the flight attendants always say, even though we always laugh at them, you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of others. And you need to get those accountability partners like your Yorkie or your cat to help you get through those. So thanks to our panelists today. They've given us some great food to think about. And thanks to all of you who took time to type comments into the chat. I found them very enjoyable and interesting to read. And now, if you have not, I'm going to share my screen. If you have not identified what breakout session you want to go to, you need to do that now. You must do that now in the chat so that Jeff can put you in the correct breakout session. Remember, there are 3 options. ASCE, OC breakout room, PMP. You do not have to be a PMI or an ASCE member. Anyone who's interested in learning about obtaining a PMP can go into that breakout room. And then the PMI OC breakout room. So please put in the chat now as I continue to vamp for about a minute so that you have a chance to do that. So thank you very much all for your time. Put your selection in the breakout room, and Jeff, I'm going to let you take over and tell people what you're going to do next.
We're going to open here in about 30 seconds, so put in your last request, and if you get the wrong room, just message me, I'll switch you out.
Did you not pick you? I apologize, Jason. I was calling you Jeff because I've been talking to Jeff. If Jason will leave you here, you'll end up in the big breakout room all by yourself if you don't tell Jason where you want to go.
Okay, they're open. Everyone should accept.
Hey, Jason, can you hear me?
Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you. Let me.
Am I in the
you
right
hear me?
one now?
No, you're in the main one. Jason's got to send you to the correct one.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Jason, it's Christina. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Christina.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. I was put into a group for people that were interested in PMP. So I don't know if that was the right group for me or not, because I'm not a PMP.
No, I don't
Christina,
know where Jason's at.
Oh, okay.
hey, Chad.
Oh no. Hold on one second. Liz, could you look at this? Sorry, I'm not sure. Oh,
I think you'd have to leave yet. I think you'd have to, you've been assigned to breakout room. You're already in it.
no, this is the main room.
Ah,
Yay.
Jason's right here.
Yeah, I know I messaged him, but he's not responding.
Mm.
Yay. I don't have control of moving people around, unfortunately. Looks like, yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Christina's in that group talking about PMP right now. So it's not like they're not listening to anything, but I just don't know if I should.
Who is?
Christine Hayes Munson.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if there is another group that doesn't have anybody in there. That's the only.
It's supposed to be the PMP breakout room that has Dawn in it, but it looks like Dawn left. Oh, you should have a pop-up, Christina.
Okay, perfect.
Jason just messaged me.
Yes. Okay. So it says PM.
Got it?
I'm going to try to join it. If it's the same group, I'll come back.
Okay. All right. Just waiting for Jason to send it. Hey, Bo, thank you so much. While I have you here, thank you so much for all your responses. They were very good.
Oh,
All of the
appreciate it.
panelists crushed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you guys did a fantastic job getting us organized. Just by giving us kind of a slate of questions. You know, we had the questions to where, you know, we had an opportunity to sit down ahead of time and kind of get your mind around it, as opposed to fielding those same questions cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to come off quite as seasoned. So that's so the good product has, you guys are responsible for it for sure.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And you know, this event was something that was really important to us with PMI, and especially with my team. We're looking for as many opportunities as we can for increasing diversity and inclusion and diversity of thought. And this event is exactly that. So really happy to have your support as well as ASCE's support. It's been incredible, and I'm really excited to continue the relationship with Clint and his presidency. So really excited. More events to come for sure. We're already planning some for February and some other months too. Oh, looks like everybody's back.
Hey, that's perfect.
Oh,
We're back.
Hello everyone.
we got back here.
Well, for the way
Yeah,
it
we
works, you have to bring everyone back into the main session before you can do the next breakout. So now we're prepared to do the next breakout.
I know. Where are you? Oh shit, go. Stop it. Stop it. No. Thank you for handling Zoom for us, Jason.
Yeah, just trying to direct traffic.
Well, you guys got to know Jason's really good at this. He gets us to drink beer together. He gets us to drink scotch together, and we're all remote. It comes delivered to our door, and then